I think it's time for another episode of Therapists Gone Wild, where I share with you poor life choices made by therapists resulting in them no longer being licensed therapists. On today's episode, a licensed marriage and family therapist from California. Our story begins with our therapist working with a young 19-year-old on anxiety and trying to recover from an unhealthy former relationship. A few months into the therapy, they decided to have their session at the local park. And I have nothing against walk and talk, non-traditional therapy, but you gotta be a little bit more careful, especially with issues of confidentiality, other people hearing in, and so on. In this case, though, the therapist also decided to offer this 19-year-old a drink. And no, not juice. Now, the client turned down this offer of a drink because they were underage, and the therapist did what any reasonable therapist would do, just had a drink by themselves while conducting therapy. Now, their therapy work continued, and a few months later, the therapist rightly decided not to offer them another drink, instead offering them a blue pill. They said to the client, "This will help you relax and help with your communication." The therapist then promptly took one of those blue pills themselves, modeling, and the client eventually took one as well. The client then said they started to feel strange, uncomfortable, a little hot and flushed, and also a little sleepy and with chills too. At which point they started having trouble speaking. But the therapist was there to reassure her and comfort her, saying, "Don't worry, I use this with my clients all the time. It's just a little ecstasy." Now the client, of course, started getting more uncomfortable and scared. At this point, the therapist again made a really good choice, offering their client a massage to make them feel better. Now the client promptly declined and left, taking their vehicle to a nearby parking lot and calling their parents to pick them up. Lab tests later did confirm that there was MDMA in their system. Now there is one kind of redeeming part to the end of this story, because the therapist not only immediately texted the client's parents to apologize for the inappropriate actions, but actually contacted the board themselves to relinquish their license, telling the board everything that they had done that I just described and forfeiting their license on their own. And needless to say, the board accepted their surrender of their license, and they no longer are licensed to practice in the state. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Therapists Gone Wild.